given lots of examples of biblically correct micro-change. Then they switch the discussion to Darwinian macroevolution, and kids think they've been shown all sorts of information that the Bible's a fraud and that Darwinian evolution is true, when all they've really been shown is the Bible's true, but there's nobody there to explain this. And that's why it's vital that we get this information to our kids. Darwinists focus the discussion on biblically correct micro-change because they don't have any evidence of macroevolution to show anybody. They never have. They never will. And here's how I show how to destroy Darwinism in 4 seconds flat. Start your watch. Gene depletion plus natural selection makes Darwinism impossible. Stop your watch. Oh, I'm sorry, that was 3 seconds. Natural selection, there is no selector standing there. That's what we call a term when things get too weak and they die off. I call it God's QA program. If things went unremoved from the gene pool, they corrupt the gene pool, everything would go extinct in about 1,500 years. But they lose too much information, they die off. God's QA program, preserving the originally created gene pools and keeping things strong. So lie number 5, I'm going to divide this into 5A and B, is homology, which is a perfectly good realm of science, the study of similarities. But when they start teaching that similar biochemistry proves evolution, now we're into the fairy tale stage. Have you ever heard that you are only 2% difference in a chimpanzee in your biochemistry? Well, they throw that out all the time, don't they? Now, real science, a believer's best friend. I've seen studies posted in Nature magazine, the world's most prestigious scientific journal, that says there's as much as a 30% difference between humans and chimps. Real science is finding a much wider separation, and as real science gets into the genome, the wider and wider the difference is becoming. So why do they still teach 2%? Hey, why don't they just get out the frauds and put in the real evidence of Darwinian macroevolution? Have I mentioned they don't have any? Did I mention gene depletion plus natural selection makes Darwinism a scientific impossibility? If they're going to teach that genetic similarity proves our evolutionary past, they should tell kids we evolved from worms. Your biochemistry is 75% the same as that from some worms. In fact, your biochemistry is 50% the same as that from a banana. Anyone evolved from a banana? Just 3 or 4, that's not bad. Because the last time I spoke at a college, 500 students raised their hand and they were serious, because they've been taught we've all descended from a common ancestor found in a population of primitive unicellular organisms, which would mean you are related to bananas. So I got home that night, I got online to check my family tree. There wasn't a banana in the whole bunch. Oh, I heard those groans. Some folks didn't find that very appealing. Yeah, don't groan at my jokes, because I know a lot of really bad jokes that my wife always says, don't use those, everyone groans at them. Anyways, okay, lie number 6, antibiotic or poison resistances prove things are evolving better and better. This actually has absolutely nothing to do with the fairy tale of Darwinian evolution and the evolution of new kinds via new and beneficial genetic information. Let's use insects as an example. Let's say I had 1,000 insects, and they were running right off the stage to the front row here. But just before they got to you, I sprayed them with insecticide, and 998 out of the 1,000 died. Did the 2 survivors instantaneously evolve an immune system? No, they already had the gene in their gene pool that allowed them to survive that poison. The others didn't have it, or it was turned off, and they died. Now, when these 2 have offspring, the offspring inherit that gene, they're immune to the poison, they evolved absolutely nothing. The information was already there. So why do Darwinists use this as one of their key proofs of Darwinian evolution? Why don't they get the frauds out and bring out the real evidence? I think we've already covered that. Let's go to lie number 7 from embryology, the study of embryos. When they say that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, you guys wouldn't buy into that, would you? How's a kid supposed to argue that? All that means is you go through your evolutionary stages while you're in your mother's womb. Now, Ernst Haeckel came up with this in 1869, 10 years after Darwin's book came out. Now, here are his drawings from left to right across the top. of different human and other creatures in the embryonic stage, like salamanders, fish, turtles, etc. But right below are the photos that don't look anything like his drawings. It was proven in the 1870s he had taken a human in the embryonic stage and made copies of the human, labeled them fish, salamander, turtle, etc. Proven fraud in the 1870s, and still taught in college today. Here's a modern college textbook using Haeckel's drawings as proof. Mind-boggling dishonesty. And the book says, kids, whether they develop into fish, amphibians, or vertebrates, or humans, all vertebrates start out very similar with gill slits and a long tail. You used to have gill slits and a long tail? And then, after teaching this, they asked the kids, well, why would humans have embryos with gill slits and a tail unless their ancestors had them? And there is no viable answer except we evolved from other animals. Well, here's the problem. You never had gills. You never had gill slits. These are just folds in the skin that later develop in organs in the throat and neck area. You never had a tail. If you had a tail as an embryo, don't you think they'd show millions of pictures? You know, granted, the backbone, the spine, is one of the first things that develop in a human embryo. And we named the end of the backbone, the end of the spine, the tailbone. Had nothing to do with there being a tail there. We just called it that. Pure fraud, pure propaganda. And I can make it look pretty silly pretty quickly, but see, I'm not in those millions of classrooms around the nation and around the world as kids have their faith destroyed. Lie number 8. The fossil record proves Darwinism. You ever seen these evolutionary trees of life? You know, and at the base, someone's typed in the word invertebrate ancestor. Why don't they show what it was? They don't have any idea what it would have been. And then someone takes a box of crayons and draws nice, colorful lines connecting everything in the world to the word invertebrate ancestor, and this is their proof of Darwinism. Do you actually see any proof of Darwinism there? For that to be scientific, each one of those branches would be made up of millions of transitional fossils as one kind evolved into the other. Yet here we are today, 150 plus years after Darwin's book came out, they don't have a single viable missing link in the fossil record that would hold up to true scientific scrutiny, to real science, a believer's best friend. Yet this book says, oh yeah, we do, Archaeopteryx, that's a missing link between reptiles and birds. Now this was found 2 years after Darwin's book came out. And what they said was, well, it's about the size of a pigeon, has claws on its wing, proving it's a reptile becoming a bird. Well, the Hoytson's found alive in South America today. It's about the size of a pigeon, has claws on its wings. Nobody's claiming it is a missing link of any sort. I thought they actually gave up on this 30 years ago when scientists, real science, found modern bird fossils in the layer below the layer that had Archaeopteryx. Remember, they say the layers form slowly over millions of years, and that would put the modern bird before the missing link. Oh, and also, real science shows that reptile DNA doesn't have the genetic information to form feathers that are very complex structures. And real science knows of no way for nature to add such information to a gene pool. Well, here's another one. They say, well, okay, well, the lobe-finned fish was a missing link between fish and amphibians. They say the lobe-fin went extinct 325 million years ago. But before he went extinct, he got bored because he couldn't swim. They say he walked around on the bottom of the ocean. So he got bored one day, crawled out on land, and became an amphibian. Nice story, but the amphibian has feet, shoulders, claws, elbows, a central nervous system, a muscular system, a skeletal system that fish don't have. And real science, a believer's best friend, knows of no way for nature to add any information, much less this type of information. In fact, the problems get worse for them because the lobe-finned fish has been found alive today, not extinct 325 million years. It doesn't walk around on the bottom of the ocean. It's a very good swimmer. And think about this. The fossilized version that we're told is 325 million years old looks exactly like the living version. I thought they evolved over time. Yeah, there's no evolution found in the fossil record. So in case you think it's me saying they've got no evidence in the fossil record, they've got a key theory to Darwinism that explains why they've got what? No evidence. It's called punctuated equilibrium. If a kid asks a professor, Professor, why is there no evidence in the fossil record of Darwinian evolution? No, punctuated equilibrium, don't you know anything? And what this says is evolution didn't happen over a long period of millions of years of time. There was a spurt of evolution and a long period with no change. They call it stasis. And a spurt of evolution and a long period with no change. And that's why no evidence was captured in the fossil record. They've got a theory to explain why they've got what? No evidence. I thought science was knowledge derived from the study of the evidence. See, Darwinian evolution is an anti-scientific religious belief on how we came about. It has undermined scientific research and scientific education and the faith of not millions, billions of people over the past 150 years alone. It's led to the premature death of not millions, billions of people over the last 150 years alone. Let's get to lie number 9. Tiktaalik. This is one of the two messiahs of Darwinism today. Think about this. It was appropriately introduced to the world on April Fool's Day of 2006. And when they introduced it, the New York Times wrote, think about what it says here. It's still a fish, but exhibiting changes that anticipate the beginnings of wrists, elbows, and shoulders. Now think about that. It doesn't show the beginnings of wrists and elbows and shoulders. It shows changes that anticipate the beginnings. It doesn't even show the beginnings. How do you anticipate random chance mutations? Well, now follow me on this, because this is mind-boggling dishonesty, and this is what our kids are up against, which is why you see the snowflakes out there writing. They are victims. They have been so deceived, it is mind-boggling. But follow me on this about Tiktaalik, because this is one of their messiahs. Tiktaalik and that fossilized lobed-fin fish that we find alive today with no change. Well, see, the lobed-fin fish has this little nubby bone in its side. And from the fossilized version to the living version, there was no change. Well, Tiktaalik has the same little nubby bone in its side. And they're saying it changed into elbows, shoulders, and wrists. And the skeletal system, the muscular system, the central nervous system to control all this. When the lobed-fin shows no change whatsoever. Mind-boggling dishonesty. Darwinian lie. Let's go back to 5 about homology, the study of similarities. When they claim that similar bone structure proves that we've evolved from a common ancestor, they have gone from science into the land of fairy tales. They show kids the drawings. Hey, you ever notice all their proofs are drawings? You ever notice that? Yeah, there's an old saying that goes like this. Darwinists are experts at drawing things that never existed to support their theory that never took place. Honestly, if you took away their box of crayons, they've got nothing. I mean, nothing. Don't they have cameras? I guess not. Anyways, they show the drawings of a human forearm, the foreleg of a cat or a dog or a horse, the flipper of a whale, and they say, look, they all have 2 bones in them, proof they've evolved from a common ancestor. Well, who would that common ancestor be? They claim we've all evolved from the lobed-fin fish. Can you believe it? And they find the living fish with no change whatsoever, and they're teaching kids they've all evolved from the lobed-fin fish. Couldn't you say that similar bone structure is because they have a similar designer? Yeah, I drive a Ford pickup truck. My next door neighbor has a Ford van. Their dashboards are identical. It's not because they evolved from a moped. It's because they have the same designer, right? Especially kids in high school and college. Any argument about similarities, biochemistry, bone structure, remember, when you hear the word similarity, remember you have a similar designer. You didn't evolve from a wet rock, leaving no evidence behind punctuated equilibrium. So lie number 10, the hominids, the closest link between ape and man, or the supposed hominids. Here's a new book showing kids that they've evolved from jellyfish and worms, and for proof, they use a nice red line. Hey, what more for proof could you want than a nice red crayon, right? Mind-boggling deceit. Well, let's look at some of the most famous hominids that have misled not millions, billions of people into rejecting Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Piltdown Man was the first major messiah of Darwinian evolution. discovered about 1910. From 1910 until the mid-1950s, this was the Messiah of Darwinism. And then finally, after misleading billions of people, it was proven that the discoverers of Piltdown Man had taken the skull cap of a human, the jawbone from an orangutan, filed them down so they fit together, acid treated both sides, buried them in a rock quarry in Piltdown, England, and waited 2 years and came along and dug up Piltdown Man and spent the rest of their lives as world-renowned Darwinian evolutionists, speaking on any college campus they wanted. And this misled not millions, billions of people. It misled so many people that finally in 1963, we kicked creation and prayer out of our schools and started teaching our kids they evolved without God. And today, almost 90% of Christian children leave the church by the age of 20. Why? Because they're being taught it's a scientific fact they evolved without God. And only 2% of churches will let me share this. Oh yeah. Only 98% of churches block this information because there's so much compromise inside the church they don't want to upset anybody. While we lose 90% of our kids, that is extremely sad. Total fraud. Nebraska Man was used as proof of Darwinian evolution. All that was found in Nebraska Man was a piece of a broken tooth. But Darwinists can be pretty creative. From that broken tooth, they recreated Nebraska Man, his family, and the tools he would have worked with, all from a broken tooth. It was later proven that tooth came from an extinct pig, an extinct peccary. There's the real Nebraska Man right there. So, besides Tiktaalik, Lucy is the next Messiah. This has been one of the Messiahs of Darwinism for about 40 some odd years now. Well, this is the skeleton that was found, about a third of a skeleton. And they said, well, when they found it, they said, well, the thigh bone, the femur, had to angle to hook up with the knee joint, and humans have angled femurs, proving it's an ape becoming a human. And they said, and the knee in question here, they said, think about this.